this week by Neil.
Hello.
By Dom.
Hi there.
And the triumphant return for Gav.
Hello.
Gav, how the devil are you?
Good. Yeah, good. We're just saying, we still haven't, what are we now, Thursday night? Still haven't quite got over the disappointment of Monday. But
well, quite. Now, the listener isn't going to be interested in this whatsoever, but I can see over your shoulder what looks like a framed 12-inch Attack of the Grey Lantern.
Which to this day, I still think is one of the most cleverly produced albums I've ever heard. It's it all fits in seamlessly. Yeah, love Manson.
We'll have to cover this when we're finished recording because I don't think anybody is going to want. In fact, Manson fans typically fit into one of the most hated sets of fans category that you're going to find because they're insane. Now, I think seeing the recent performance of Six from start to finish was probably one of the highlights of my entire life. Then they played it in Cov. Did you go?
No, I didn't. I'm part of one of the most maligned groups in the whole of the world, but I'm one of those annoying people that just buys. I've reached that middle-aged point where I just buy vinyl to stick up on the wall. I've got Blur Part Life there, which is I hate, and it's probably one of the worst albums of all time. But I love the vinyl, so I popped it up there, and it just sits on my.
It's blurry from where I am, but I think it's Part Life definitely maybe. This is like I'm doing an eye test. Part Life definitely maybe 1977, perhaps in the middle.
It is by Ash, yes, and then for Full House. Can you make it out?
I don't think I can make out the second one.
Shall I give you a clue? It's a peacock.
Dom or Neil, it's gonna really annoy me because I'm gonna know it.
Yeah,
but
you're the music man. That's you.
It's not Cooler Shaker.
It's not cool. No, it's not. Although I did see Cooler Shaker 3 weeks ago in Birmingham. Very
did you
good.
Really?
With ocean colour scene. Yeah.
Wow.
There we go.
It was full of. 45
people from the past, of course, yeah.
With Weller haircuts, and that's all it was.
No, go on then.
Blue tones, expecting to fly.
Of course, okay. Well, there you go. It's the 90s music. 90s music.
That's all for this week, but yeah.
Well, let's do some non-90s music stuff. Neil, moment of the week.
Yeah, moment of the week. Well, my moment is actually a moment from the past, I guess. Not quite the 90s, but a couple of weeks ago, Mr. Jamie Patterson getting his last-minute goal.
Of course,
and
yeah.
That happened, and I tell you what, I'm the only one who's probably not that fussed now that he's from Cov. I've heard it enough. It's great you're from Cov, but I just was very, very happy about the quality of the goal. I thought it was an absolute sensation, but also the fact, a last-minute winner. When we really needed a winner in the race for the playoffs. That's what made me most excited. And then obviously it's nice to know he's from Cov. Yes, great. But goal and a win and 3 points at this time of the season is all I care about. Thanks so much. And it was lovely. Although Dom, didn't you have, maybe I couldn't tell if you were joking or not. It wasn't quite as crisp a shot as you were hoping for.
It shinned it, therefore it's a bad goal. We all know the rule.
Yeah.
I don't remember it live, but when I watched it back, has there ever been a longer goal celebration than in a match that hadn't finished? He pretty much gets into the crowd. There's enough time for the keeper to come up and celebrate with him. If you were I know it's virtually the end of the game, but do you not think there's a bit of you as a Portsmouth player that would be like, can we get on with this, please? Like, this game hasn't finished.
It was the most manic one we've seen. And I love the idea. You had Tats and all the guys in their coats running over as well to get involved, but not really sprinting over, just sort of jogging over. Just wait for us, guys. We'll be there in a minute. Yeah. We'll have our celebration with you.
All quite inappropriate in the grand scheme of things. All absolutely delicious business. Dom?
I'm going to go for, after our last pod, our character assassination of him, seeing Matt Grimes pop up, basically in the penalty area, tackling someone and scoring a goal.
can I just add to this, right? So at half time against Hull, me and Paul decided that one of the big problems that we would face heading into the playoffs is the complete lack of goal threat from midfield, specifically Matt Grimes, who then, of course, well, we can argue whether he scored 2 or 1, but that is now our informed goal scorer. Yeah, when he scored on against West Bromwich, I just sort of turned around to him. I was like, why do we ever say anything at any point? We were like,
you
he's
should
obviously
say something about a keeper, maybe. Then, if you've got that sort of impact on stuff, feel free to say something about what we need now. Is a brilliant keeper.
Yeah. So you go on then, Dom Grimes.
Yeah, I mean that was just something unexpected, and I think we've seen over the 2 games they've played together just how much that frees Grimes up playing with Ben Sheaf, where they're actually dovetailing, and I think that allows Grimes to play a little bit more aggressively. And then when we go back to Grimes plus one other for Plymouth, it was just back to him just sitting in front of the defence and just playing that sort of pedestrian style of football that he can get sucked into. So that let's hope that Sheaf doesn't collapse on the floor again for these last 2 games.
It also facilitates something that's becoming a bit of an obsession of mine, which is that the opposition goal is like Ben Sheaf kryptonite. So I'm really, really fixated on it. The closer he operates to their goal, the worse it is. I don't think he can find a teammate if he's anywhere near the box. And I don't want to see him ever have a long range shot again, even though that he has scored a handful over the years. I think he's a terrific player, but I just think we see attacks break down consistently when he's involved in them. I just want you to stay back, Ben, please. But you're right in terms of that's freed Grimes then. It's almost counterintuitive, but that it does make sense for that to be the way round. And it's been nice, hasn't it? But massively keen to see it restored for Saturday rather than, yeah.
Yeah.
Gav?
That was quite funny on Monday when we were 3-1 down. Look, if there's one thing that we do well is, whoever it is, I never want to start songs in away ends, but as soon as we realised that Bristol City were losing and Middlesbrough were losing, and then whoever started the chant up, which was, I don't know whether you swear or not on this podcast. Oh, no, we're 3-1 down, who gives a fuck? We're Coventry City and going up. And then it did have a nice effect of reminding you that it wasn't, we were incredibly lucky and things had gone our way. And the Plymouth fans who I sat quite close to, I think they took it on board as well. And the animosity kind of all went, and we were both, it's just surreal kind of end to the game on Monday, really, which was, maybe, just what I needed before 4-hour drive home. Yeah.
To stew on an incredibly frustrating performance, should imagine, bliss. Yeah. Jada Silva brought it up in the post-match interview, admittedly prompted by Clive, and you could see that he was like, we literally couldn't believe how, the noise at the end of that game, we didn't really deserve it.
It was nice, but there was a I don't know, there was an element of just absolute stupidity around the whole thing, which was, it's fine until you remember, you've wasted your entire bank holiday just watching that. And by the way, it was fine and it's great until you remember that you're still in Plymouth, 400 miles away from home. So that soon wears off. But yeah, it was quite fun. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's also a lesson there of just stay at home when we're playing on Easter Monday. Our record on Easter Monday is bizarrely terrible. We've only won once in the last 22 years on Easter Monday, which was in COVID, which was against Bristol City at St Andrews. We just always lose it. The one I remember on Easter Monday that really sticks out was when we were getting relegated from the Championship and we went to Bristol City, and it was the game that Yannick Bolasie realised he was good and just destroyed us and relegated us that day.
We went 1-0 up, didn't we? Did somebody?
Yeah.
Klingham, wasn't it?
Instead.
I've got a feeling.
yeah.
Did they have David James in goal that day? Have I just?
I feel like David James only played like 4 or 5 games for them.
Either way, there was it, but we scored after about 9 minutes, and it felt like everything would be okay, and then just wasn't.
Yeah,
very explicitly wasn't.
They had the cockiest ball boy as well. I mean, I don't know how an 11-year-old has so much gall to wind. We were all annoyed because we were getting relegated, and all I remember from that day was just being completely wound up by this 11-year-old who was giving us all the V's and stuff. It's like, you're a boy. You're being like paid to work and just be good. And he wasn't being good at all. He was annoying everybody. It was a bad day. Real bad day that was.
When I look back to that relegation, that team was very obviously really bad, right? And probably not championship level. But we didn't have to get relegated that season. That run-in that we had was incredible. We played all of the bottom teams around us and everything. And we just beat Hull away and then lost all the rest of them. Like, it's
was that Cody McDonald?
Yeah, obviously.
Oh, why am I asking you?
One of his many. I still think one of the worst moments I can remember of live Cov watching was that last game of the season against Doncaster, who were the only team below us. And I'd stopped watching the game to watch a massive kickoff in Singer's Corner because we were sat in the East Stand. And when I looked back, Richard Keogh was walking off the pitch because he'd been sent off and he'd given away a penalty. How long have I been watching that fight for? Yeah, okay. My cup runneth over, by the way, with moments of the week. Where do we start? We start with my favourite thing at the moment that I'm fixated on, which is the you pointed out, Neil. What about the individual errors? We're not going to talk about individual errors. All right. What about Brad Collins? Is everything his fault?
I just said we don't want to talk about individual. Oh my God, Frank hates him. It's been 4 months, and he hates him.
I am crazy. I'm so fixated on it now. I think too much about it. You can see. I really need somebody to train a camera on Clive while he's interviewing him, so you can see the iPhone with the BBC CWR purple thing over it, right?
Yeah.
But has he got in his other hand a list of pre-prepared questions that he's written? Or, as I expect, is he going to interview the manager of a championship club hoping to be in the Premier League and just winging it? Is he literally just going up and just being like, I just see what comes into my head? I just don't think he's good enough. I just don't think that's an acceptable tactic to just be like, I'll just see what comes out of my mouth, really. You'd be like, that's why he hates you.
I feel like at least listen to what has been said back to you, and especially when he said, I'm not going to talk about individual errors, to then ask the next question. It's like, you're not listening here, Clive, are you? I'm sure it's a difficult job. I couldn't do it, but
100%.
It is your job, so maybe.
Let's be really clear. It's obviously a really difficult job because you need to ask questions that elicit a reasonable response, but not a response that takes the entire time up because you've got time constraints. You've got to listen and question. You've got to throw out but as you say, it is your job and you've been doing it for decades. We can still be at this level. And I watched that interview that he did with Natalie. By the way, he don't mind doing an interview, by the way, Frank. It's not like it's a burden to him like Robbins did. Frank's full-time job is to just answer questions. He clearly fucking loves it because he can't turn any of them down. But Natalie Jedler interviewed him for Sky Sports in a second language, no less. And like masterclass, just gorgeous, like fucking just open questions, like provoked thoughtful responses. And you could see that he could have talked to her all day. Not what was one of the questions that he asked? I was like, that was it. Yeah. But as well, then he didn't say anything. Like he was like, why am I getting that as an answer? Because you just said to him, he was like, was it a good performance? It was so. I was like, no, you're meant to talk longer than that. Like, if you ask him a question that he can answer.
Do you think? I think Frank is slowly eroding him. He's just coming to realise the absolute averageness across everything to do with this football club. You know, he's like the bit that we have loved, the bit that we find like romantic and quirky for like the past like 10 years. Oh, isn't that, you know, he looks at, you know, you can see it coming across. He's astounded at some of the quality of play that he's seeing. I think it just translates to Clive and the team as well. He's just got like, I mean, you'd think, I'm sure the players have some sort of humility, you know, they must think all the time about, Christ, imagine like the dressing rooms he's been in. Imagine, I'm sure, does Clive not even think about, imagine who stuck a microphone in front of him at like a pivotal moment. It's nothing. Oh, I'm still going to be the same average interviewer. Just sing me, you know, I'm not embarrassed at all. I'm just going to do what I do, regardless of who.
Just punch in time, presumably, until you retire. And it's, I'd love to say, I'm not being disrespectful, but I very obviously am. And he's obviously a seasoned professional. And it also doesn't matter. Like, who cares? Like, really, it don't matter, does it? Like, it's not a big deal. But I like to fixate on these things because it makes me laugh. But it is wild to me. Other things, I'll try and whip through some of these because I don't think anyone cares either. On the subject of, brilliant. He's from Cov. We get it. Someone at Hull on the concourse had brought a roll, like a bread roll, in a Warburton's bag, and was swinging it around his head pre-game. And I just kept thinking, like, your wife or whatever, being like, "Oh, what are you doing? You're making a sandwich?" No.
You wait.
I've got a conceit here that's going to kill it on the concourse. They're going to go mad. They're going to go mad for me swinging.
They're going to love this.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the king of the concourse.
Every time a song starts up, he's like, "Is it the?" Oh, I'll have to wait. Okay, put that back in my bag. When they see this, though, I thought the overall kind of surprising aptitude of the West Brom game was lovely to see. And also I think I have more, but I've sort of forgotten most of them. But to transition us over into talking about the games that we, one final proper one. I don't know whether this was visible from telly. Did anyone clock the pre-game, lunacy at Hull? Hull, the KC Stadium made out like it was the Super Bowl pre-game. They've got like pyro and stuff and like lasers, and it was way too much. It was much too much. And I just think, I know that I'm a grouchy old killjoy, right? But a football match is more than enough as it is. Like, it's just already good enough. It's fine. I don't think you need to be like, it's Monday. It's Hull versus Coventry. Like that, they're fucking. Because then when the game is as sort of one paced as that game ended up being, it's just, all it does is serves to remind you that it's not exciting. Like we're only there out of like sort of blind loyalty and tradition and routine and whatever. Like it's not an inherently entertaining thing to do a lot of the time. Don't try and badge it like it's a fucking Katy Perry concert or whatever, because it's not. It's a load of very miserable people more often than not, or some very drunk people just doing it because that's what they do. It's fine as it is. It's not entertaining. It's just not.
Is it worse than having words to a song on a screen?
Oh,
yeah, the two biggest debates ongoing in the Coventry City House of Commons at the moment: words on a screen and whether an Argentinian man should get a ticket to a football match. Well, there's one other thing, isn't there? But I suppose we shouldn't.
There's some good chance about that.
We'll let the authorities cover that one. Right. Okay. So where do we start then? So I think we did block of 3 previously, didn't we? Of Leeds, Burnley, Sheffield United.
Yeah.
Which means that the next block is Hull, Portsmouth, Plymouth and West Brom.
Real mix there, isn't it? Real jumble.
Correct.
I was going to say there, mixed bag.
Mm.
Where do we? I don't know where we start. I think we start with Plymouth, don't we? Which I know is asked about face, but I think it's the one that probably needs the most said about it. Gav, you were there, I believe.
I was there, yeah.
Tell me how you feel.
Like I said, just incredibly frustrated. I think the this league is so terrible. This, I think everyone could just do themselves a favour and just kind of take a step back and just see how just terrible this division is. And I don't think you need much in the fine margins to be able to get us over the line here. I was thinking today actually just whether I know it's sacrilege, like whether you want to go up or not, but in my heart, I'd always thought we'd do it the right way instead of this way. I'm a kind of semi-regular punter, as I think you all know. One of the things I always do, kind of close season, is look at the standard of the renewals across all the divisions. And part of that is around expected points. There's a couple of other variables as well. So you can always, before next season, you can start to upgrade some teams or downgrade some other teams depending on the quality, the strength of schedule that they've played. I always look at the championship and I always think, okay, my starting point is like, how big is the middle, right? This big fat middle of averageness, which you always get in the championship. And in the good renewals, it's like pretty low. I reckon there's not much difference between Bristol City in fifth and going all the way down to Portsmouth. I think you take all those teams and you throw them up in the air and they land in any order, and that could be the order of play in the championship, which is, and I think when it is so tight like that, like you look at teams like Oxford, teams like Stoke, teams like Cardiff, right, who have been Cardiff has still mathematically got a chance of staying up in this division, right? People should be in any other renewal. They'd have been long gone. The fact that Blackburn are still in the fact that West Brom have been playing terribly for half a season. They're only one game shy. Well, they sacked Mowbray, and they're only one game shy of still being in the playoff race. And all it really takes, when you look at that, it's just the fine margins. It's Ellis Sims getting to double figures, and he can't do it. It's having a semi-competent goalkeeper who doesn't shit himself every time the ball comes in maybe 3 games where he has.
Yeah, we're not asking a lot, I don't think.
Sorry.
We're not asking a lot in that regard.
We're not we are not asking a lot at all. You look at the other teams. Bristol City are a case in point. Probably, they started the season behind us, right? They've always been to me like a team very similar to us, right? They've made kind of slow, steady progress. They're going to do things the right way, but they're still not that good. They still shouldn't have got close in any average renewal, but they've got they're right back for Scotland, Ross McCrory, who's chipped in with a couple of goals. They got a lad on loan from West Ham who's chipped in with a couple of goals. They got Rob Dickey, who scored their centre half, who scored a couple, and that's going to be the difference for them if they make it. Just those little bits, and we just can't. Like Neil says, we're just not asking a lot. You just need to get a couple of things right, and we're going to. I've got this feeling, yeah. And Monday was the epitome of all of that. Just terrible decisions, terrible performances everywhere.
Technical point. What do you mean? What's a renewal?
The renewal, like this year's renewal of the championship, the campaign, right?
Okay, fine.
Let's look at the 24-25 renewal of the championship,
Okay. So, I asked about Plymouth. That was actually sort of existential. No, I loved every second of it. But it was an existential how the moon about the.
That's what I was thinking of for half time.
So a couple of things. When we signed Brandon Thomas-Asante, and you look at kind of 2 seasons of scoring roughly 10 to 12 goals for West Brom. It's not like exhilarating stuff when you sign him, but you are right. Is that sort of striker is playoff level? That's the sort of thing the championship works. So going back to what you said about Sims, talk me through your Sims journey.
Well, the last time I was on this podcast, I was giving him the benefit of every single doubt that ever existed. He's just clearly not. He's just clearly that there's enough evidence now. There's enough tape in the book to say there's just nothing. You know, I've seen the comments from the coaches this week. He needs a prod. He needs a bit of. You know, maybe a month or two ago, I would have been, he needs some confidence. Now I'm like, we're not a charity, paying him good money. He needs to contribute, and he needs to do more, and he needs to look like he's threatening the chance against Hull, which, you talk about keepers helped him out there. Never once thought when he was one-on-one that he was going to slot it away. And you just look at, and it is just the most infuriating. I want everyone at this club to do well, and I want it to be a springboard to bigger and better things, whether it's with us or not. But it just looks awful. He just looks terrible in this. Like I said, he just probably doing a job. You're probably not as concerned. Like I said, I'm not that upset about it. If we're middle of the table and we're going nowhere, like I said, we just don't need much. We just need.
And that's it, isn't it? I think my problem with it is, sorry, Gav, I just completely spoke over you, but I'm fighting the internet here, so I'm just going to talk, and hopefully I make my way in. But yeah, I think my issue with it is almost downgrading our expectations, then kind of get to a place where what they're doing is acceptable. And like with Sims, we've got a version of him which I think on any given day we've seen it where he's bustling, he's driving on. Like the semi-final against Man United is my version of Sims, where you're like, oh God, he really stepped up and he wanted to be, the man. And you're like, right, okay, there he is. There's the version. But the problem is you see him once every 20 games. And then you've got the other version who, whatever you say about him, he's an uncomfortable watch. His touch is very bad. And his general all-round play is difficult to sort of make anything of, because it's really sort of ungamely. So my issue now is I watch him, and I give him too much of the benefit of the doubt, because I'm thinking, right, well, I still want you to get to that thing. So when he does make a little bit of a run, or he does nudge someone out of him, like, oh yeah, look, he's showing for it. But then I step back and I'm like, we spent a lot of millions on this man. I shouldn't be downgrading what I expect from him just because I'm desperate for him to do well. Like, I think the time has come for him to perform at the level that we've seen way more. And just to quickly jump, I have the same thing with Collins, in the sense where we spent good money on that man, and now it's gone way too far where I am not even. Remember in the season, Dom, we were talking about making the saves which you don't expect them to make, or just make it. We need a big save from these goalkeepers. All I want from Bad Collins right now is making the saves which an outfield player in goal would make. Like, I want you make those saves, I'll be okay. You remember when John O'Shea went in goal or Harry Kane went in goal? He's playing like them. Like, stop playing. Just do the normal stuff. Be solid. But that's wrong. You shouldn't be just desperate for a keeper to do the bare minimum. It's like, they're the problems with some of the players around the place. I'm kind of downgraded to a place where it's not really the right judgment. Like, we spent a lot of money on these players. They should be up at upper level. And these games where they're off shouldn't be so far off. Like, I'll then jump onto Haji Wright, who I love. I think he's a fantastic player. I'm not sure what's happened to him the last couple of games, but it's just like an intensity thing where he feels he looks a little bit lethargic. And I would say he's tired, but he can't surely be tired because he's only just come back from injury, but he just looks tired. Is that right?
Have you ever seen, by the way, on Right, have you ever seen a player genuinely commit to their defensive duties, but in the most begrudging way possible? Like, he does track back, and he does. Yeah. And there was, against West Brom, there was one particular moment of really, really solid defending.
Yeah, he did.
But there's something in his, like, approach to it which just says, I fucking hate doing that.
He does it once, and then, to give him his credit, Sims does it a lot. But the second Sims doesn't do it, Wright is like, for Christ's sake, Eddie, you go and get him. Eddie, I'm waiting. Like, I've done it once this 90. Now it's your turn.
I don't like seeing it, because I just think whether he's on the left or up front, the Sims that you want, the right that you want to see is the one against Sunderland, where he's able to sort of like loosely float around the width of the pitch, and pick up the ball wherever he can get it and drive on. I'm not sure I really want him dropping back, but if he's out on the left, I can understand why as a functional thing he has to. But that when Sims poses so little goal threat, you do have to wonder whether, like, what is Patterson not a better choice to start on the left? Or is he still not match fit enough? Or like, is there not a version of this that could be like, how little does Lampard think of Bissett? Like, would Bissett not be a better like, or is there not something else we can do? Cause I'm the same as you, Gav. I've gone completely off the deep end with Sims. I feel like I was one of the last people to really stand behind him, and I just have completely lost. I just think I don't care what it is anymore. I just don't think you're the answer to what we need. And crucially, I don't see you scoring another goal between now and whatever the end of the playoffs is, or not playoffs, or whatever we get. And you just think, well, if that's how I feel about it, and I don't think I'm alone in this, why is he in the team? What's the point? There's got to be a better solution to that, right?
I think maybe the thing is that there isn't though. Like, yeah. I think what we saw is, I think the solution that we tried before was obviously Hadji right up front and EMC on the left. That in its own right probably has a bit more oomph about it. And you think, okay, over the course of time, that could work. I think the other alternative of another striker up front, Bissett, like maybe he's not ready. I mean, he had the most terrible cameo the other day, which is a cameo, so you can't hold it against him. But I think my issue with him is it's like, I'm now waiting for football reasons to understand what he's about. I love the energy, love the running. You are quick, boy. I like it. Football stuff, need more from him. And it's just like, I don't know if the other strikers offer anything else. So Hadji Wright is the only real alternative as somebody who's going to get you to the playoffs, really. I think it feels like that's the only thing. But then you're left with, you need somebody on the left. And you said Patterson, like, we just don't know, do we? That's a punt, isn't it? We like, who is he? There's
got to be a reason. Lampard likes rotation. There's got to be a reason that he's not started a game yet, hasn't there? Yeah,
exactly. So EMC, I don't know. Anybody heard if he's close, or is he back? Is he? Because we could do with him.
The last I heard, he was out for the season. But I think that was hearsay. Go on, Dom.
Like last game or something.
Well, I think Lampard said that Torp is definitely out for the season. I know that Dovin's out too. That he didn't say Thomas and Mason Clark are also injured gives us that little bit of hope, but who really knows?
Where do you stand on this, Dom? Sims?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the Plymouth game was kind of where I sort of gave up the ghost with him. It was just he as has been said, he's just been given so many chances, so many different ways of playing himself into form over the past year and more than that. And it just takes so much hard work for him to get in a position where he's impacting games. And you're just at the point now where you think, well, let's just get someone else in who's lower maintenance than that. It shouldn't require giving someone 10, 15 games in a row to start at centre forward to play themselves into form. And then the moment you drop them, you have to waste another 10, 15 games. It's just, it's not worth the effort. And I'm sure Sims will eventually come good somewhere, but we don't have that. I don't think we have the kind of time frame came into form, certainly not this season. And I think after like 2 seasons of seeing this version of Sims, probably at a point where you're thinking, let's just get another striker who's less hard work. I think the problem is, who do we bring in? Norman Bassett against West Brom, that was a laughably bad cameo performance. He looked like he looked like a competition winner. That's kind of answers the question as to why he hasn't been playing recently. I think the frustrating thing actually is that in the whole game, the whole notion of playing Sims in the centre and Wright on the left kind of worked, except that Wright didn't score the 4 or 5 chances that fell his way from being on the left. And that's kind of how it works. But, against Plymouth, you can say it's a hard task playing up against a team that played 4 centre-backs, but he just didn't do anything to get himself into the game. And then you're looking at Luton on Saturday, which is going to be much the same. And you're kind of just crossing your fingers and hoping it works. I think the only idea I have going forward, and certainly for the Luton game itself, would be, do we just go 3-5-2 and give Sims that little extra support? We saw in the last game against Luton, albeit against a completely different Luton back three, that caused a lot of problems. So maybe that works. The Luton game, I'm sure we'll get onto later. It's kind of a weird one where the result of that game doesn't matter too much compared to the one next week, where we could beat Luton and we could still fail to make the playoffs. But if we lose to Luton and beat Middlesbrough, that's it. So it's a very strange game where I think it's almost just try and come out with it with as much pride as possible, which is just bizarre situation to be in when you're chasing the playoffs and you're going away to a relegation threatened team at the end of the season. But it's just a very unique scenario that we found ourselves in, where we can make the top 6 without winning another game.
Just don't get absolutely tonked 4-0 by Luton. That will make me very nervous, because suddenly Millwall are eyeing things up and I won't like the look of that. But that's my worry. Like, stop conceding 3 goals. That's not good. That's not good for anybody.
You look at like the intensity of Plymouth was, it shouldn't have been a surprise, right? There should have been absolutely everything we should have expected. I think it's disappointing from our point of view. West Brom had completely lost that intensity. Portsmouth were probably safe-ish at the time. Hull were, good enough. But the difference in the performances, you just got to be, the Sunderland win, which you spoke about already. Let's just bear in mind, the run of Sunderland stopped playing in this division a long, long time ago because they knew that they were. Just add a bit of context to it. Away at Derby, another good example of a team that are just that used to be us, right? That used to be us we turn up for that big game. We could rely on some intensity. What we were missing. I fear for a rinse and repeat on Saturday.
Why are we not intense? That's what makes no sense. Like, we're going for something.
Exactly.
Here. We're so close.
Exactly.
Like, come on, guys.
But I don't think it's. I don't think it's intensity that we're lacking. It's quality that we're lacking, isn't it? Like, if you go
to the
through
teams at the bottom though, because they've just got intensity. If we're matching them for intensity, then
that's not a bad shout, I don't suppose. But I don't know how. But like Gav said, I guess.
There you go. Look at the difference between Ryan Hardy on Monday and Ellis Sims. I know it's one game, 90 minutes, but 2 players there playing in the same position, going for completely opposite ends of the. I know exactly who I would want in my side, for the rest of the season, and it's a player like Ryan Hardy.
We've got 4 centre backs and only one that I think most people would be like really interested in seeing stay on. We've got, by the way, one of the moments of the week that I missed out on, fair play to Jada Silva for his resurgence in the last few games. I think he's been really fantastic, right? But likewise, 2 left backs that I don't think really fit the bill for the quality of team that we want. Like, have we got a striker that we're happy with? Wright is a very, very good player, but I guess we don't know for definite what his best position is. Like, we are going for top 6, but I think the point that Gav made around, could you really stick a fucking cigarette card between the quality of teams in 23rd and 5th? It's somewhat arbitrary, isn't it? So intensity does do it, but I think we could easily see out Plymouth's intensity with a better defence. again, that second goal is just fucking chronic. And Milan has been brilliant recently. And I think it's a shame for him that Radoni has been as good as he has, because I think Milan are getting a lot more plaudits, but that just lose the ball and then just didn't just let him go. Didn't attempt at all to get back. Maybe that's where you're right about intensity. I don't know why that happened. But it's frustrating. The only encouraging thing is that the playoffs this year will be Bristol City, who I just don't think anything of particularly. Us, who were sort of stumbling into it in the way that we are. Sheffield United, that will be despondent, having been top for so much of the season and then haven't gone up automatically. And Sunderland, who, like you said, Gav, have been fourth since the beginning of time. I don't really know how any of the teams will approach. Right.
Someone will stumble, any of those four, someone will stumble into the Premier League, or any one of six is going to stumble in the Premier League. And look, it might as well be us, but you can have no complaints if it's not. It's like,
it's not beyond the realms of possibility, right? That next, in August, we like start the season. Let's not even make it too sexy. Let's say that we play Bournemouth at home or whatever, right? And the team is named, and Liam Kitchen's still in it. You're like, nah, what? What?
That's my one hope in all this.
Premier League.
That's what people say, like, we're going to go up, and it's like, we're going to get absolutely destroyed. My one hope is that we're like, we have to do something about this, guys, before this team doesn't exist in the Premier League. Like, that just doesn't happen. Well, I don't know if we'll go as mad as Forest, but there will be change if we go up. There has to be. You don't look. I mean, I wonder how much like Lampard regrets giving Bidwell an extra contract and all that sort of stuff. He gave it very early on, and you're like, oh, hang on, you might want to watch it a little bit more just to suggest if he's at the level that you need him to be. And I like Bidwell. I think he's a fine player, but like you were saying earlier, Gav, I think over the course of time, Lampard watching the quality, watching the things, watching what he wants his team to do, you sort of think there are levels to this, and I don't think some of these players will be the levels that he'll be kind of demanding. But it all depends on what happens.
I think it was you on your last episode. I'll throw that in just so you know. Even when I'm not on, I do listen. I know that there was everyone was talking about that. But yeah, you was like the defense is still. It's just absolutely chaotic, and I agree. Like the Silva has been really, really good, but lots of players have put in 2 or 3 games of being really, really good this season, and we soon default. I was disappointed that he didn't start on Monday for whatever reason, but there's still Kitchen and Latabodiere. I just like. I'm just amazed at how they have managed. In some cases, I'm just amazed at how they've managed to like make it as far as they have. It's just none of them to me seem concerned with playing the ball at any moment in time. Latabodiere is just focused on, well, how can I? Lots of people say it's smart. To me, it's like it's chaotic and it's unprofessional. But his first thought is, how can I fall over here at some point to get you pretty quick?
I'm so glad you've brought this up.
Disgusting. And Kitchen is the same. And I think we saw some of this, if I remember rightly, like in the West Brom game when we gave away a few chances. Again, he's fixated on the man. He wants to, the ball is secondary to what he wants to do. And it's just, I'll back up everything I've said. We're saying all of this, and we're still 6th. And if you,
this is what I mean. Yeah, like it
just tells you just how terrible this championship.
But that's the vibe of almost football this year. There's a lot of sort of weird sort of apathy or just general sort of malaise around. Like in our league, everybody's sort of, what's going on? And I saw a tweet the other day about League 2, where they're in a situation where everybody in League 2 is unhappy currently with their team, of given whether they're falling out the playoffs or not quite making the automatics, which is obviously not true. But the idea that nobody's quite happy with what's going on. And yeah, it's funny because this feels like it's been one of those sort of cathartic sessions where we're just trying to get all this nonsense off our chest. But obviously, we know we're in 3 days' time, we win, and Middlesbrough, fail to win, all that sort of stuff. We could be in the playoffs and be like, oh, this is amazing. But there is just something. It's just because it's kind of feels like almost in spite of what we're doing, we're kind of there without, not almost by accident. Like, it's just, we're getting the occasional win, but there's still fundamental stuff.
I was just off my other podcast that I do, gents, and we were talking about, we were talking about Blues, and we were talking about if Blues hadn't got relegated, or what price would Blues be in their current state versus what the Championship might look like next season. And I was adamant that Blues in their current state, what division below us, they're not far off the top 6. If they were still in the Championship this season, they got more about them. I think the lesson is, the truth is in what we've seen already. We got played off the park by a second string Ipswich side. They're going to come straight back down, and I'd be amazed if they weren't one of the strongest. I've talked at length. I think people get the idea now that I'm not a big fan of this Championship season, but yeah.
But you're both right, and it is happening everywhere. Because the other curious thing is that Liverpool are being described as sort of like not stumbling, but like a sort of an inept Premier League winner, and they've lost 2 games in the league.
Yeah.
But the narrative is, yeah, but they had no competition. It's like, it's still the Premier League, isn't it? Like, and actually, the kind of Newcastle have been much better, and Villa have been much better, and like even daft like Fulham and Bournemouth and whatever. It's just an odd quirk that the very bottom teams have been so hilariously bad. But that, like you say, nobody, apart from Liverpool fans, nobody's really happy about how any of it's going.
Is it just the Forest fans the only happy people maybe in the whole of England? Those just Forest fans.
Yeah.
Them and Newcastle fans, they're the two.
Yeah.
But I think a general thing in football, I don't think it's now that's football forever. I think we're all guilty of basically something happening or a period of time making us feel a certain way, and suddenly that's the end of the world, or something happens a season or 2 seasons. Like the idea that the relegated teams or the promoted teams are getting relegated. That's happened a couple of years in a row. But as far as I'm aware, promoted teams, always, or a lot of them find it hard when they get promoted. It's not always, occasionally they go back down. Every season, one or two might go back down because it's quite difficult to leap up. It's not, that hasn't changed. That notion's changed. There's then obviously bigger questions around parachute payments, but that hasn't changed either. I just think like there was just a weird sort of period of time where we're struggling with various bits of what's going on. And for us as COV fans, I think we're probably struggling with the idea that it's there to be taken if we just performed at the kind of level that if all our players played to their best, we would have this sewn up ages ago, wouldn't we? Like we're stumbling our way to making a playoff spot, but we should have had like 70 odd points, 80 points, I think this season based on most of the stuff that's going on, but it's just not quite there. And I'm still going to be happy if we get there. It'll be great. We'll revel in it, and I think, things will perk up if we do make it, but even me and my permutations, I'm absolutely obsessed with what's going on. I know everything about everything.
Yeah.
Ain't done any permutations this week, guys. We lost to Plymouth and it knocked me because it's all based on us winning. And suddenly I'm like,
you're just like City unseen, aren't you? We never see it when we lose. But yeah,
yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
But I want to go back to what you were saying there. But while you're talking about City unseen, can you call something City unseen when probably 75, 80% of it is footage from a match that 30,000 people attended? You could argue that they use a different camera angle than the one from the highlights, but I don't think that means it's like, it's not an alien artifact, the fact that's been dragged up. Neil, what I want from you is what has to happen between now and when the season ends for you to say, I'm happy with what's happened?
That's a very easy question. if we make the playoffs, I'm happy with what happens. Okay.
So if we make the playoffs, we finish 6th, we get Sheffield United and we lose home and away, still you're happy?
Yeah, so I have this kind of progression of priority as I move through the season.
By the way, I would be, so I'm not saying you're wrong, but I know how sort of, ambitious you are.
Yeah, but the thing is, I think my ambition stems from just having the chance. So last season, all I wanted was to be in the mix in April. And then when we got into the mix in April, all I wanted was make sure that we had a chance on the final day. And then when you get to the final day, you're like, right, I just want to get to the playoffs, give someone a chance. Then I just want to, and that's all it is right now. All I care about right now is, and we've already achieved it, is being involved on the final day. We've got a chance on the final day. So that's knocked off. So now it's like, right, I just want to get to the playoffs. If we don't do anything in the playoffs right now, I'm all right. But that's kind of where I am. Where I'd be really annoyed was if we did what we did last year, which doesn't get spoken about enough, and just completely fall off a cliff and not even, make it to the final day. Luckily, we found a way to do that. But, that's, so I am broadly happy that we've got a chance, but I won't be happy if we lose the last 2 games because, that's probably not going to end well for us if that happens.
But you made a really astute point before about kind of thinking that what happens in the last 2 years is indicative of a sort of a growing trend, whereas it can be what happens in the last 2 years. My question to you, and this is again more of a sort of existential question, is actually, is there any material difference between finishing 7th, 1 point behind the team in 6th, and finishing 6th and losing in the semis, basically? Is that a better or worse? It's still the same amount of points. It's still the same amount of one less point. It's still the same amount of performances over 46 games. What difference does it make if we don't?
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And that's the thing I think that football misses at the moment. There's this quote from a basketball player, the Greek guy, I forget his name now, but, he talks about, somebody says, oh, you failed the season. And the only difference was that another team beat them. They played well. Everybody can't always be perfect.
And they play 120 games. It's
exactly.
It's 90 or so games in it for a season. Yeah.
And that's the fallacy of football. I think people sometimes divorce themselves from what you're actually doing and trying to, and then just look at the points or look at the position in the league. Well, actually the reality is you could win, 38 games and somebody wins 39. And you might not concede a goal, but you've drawn. All this sort of stuff comes together. You've done everything you can, but somebody else, it's just their time. Well, they've just won more. We don't do that. And like you say, I think there is no material difference really if we finish 7th and we finish 6th. The only difference really is psychologically and also the reality of what's happened in the last month, knowing that it was there if we really wanted it and we messed that up. You can get a bit annoyed by that. But if you sit back and look at the whole season, you're like, well, this is what the season looks like, and you have to kind of assess it as a whole. And I think that's just a general problem with football and how we assess things. And that's why, people get sacked for things. That's why Hull sacked their manager and all that sort of shit, because they don't assess things properly. They just assess it based on this notion that everybody can win all the time. It doesn't work like that.
Dom, what has to happen? Same question, between now and the end of the season for you to be happy?
To be happy,
or as close to happy as any human can reasonably hope to attain.
Okay, I definitely think making the playoffs is important, whether we win it or not. I sort of agree that if we went into playoffs and it was just a complete no-show over 2 legs, that is essentially the same as finishing 7th, but it's just giving yourself that chance to succeed.
Yeah.
Where we've, in what has been quite a strange season, that we've managed to sort of drift in towards the playoffs. There's some gravitational pull about this football club that's sort of dragging it onwards, and I think making the top 6 is kind of a marker of that. Whether we go on to go up or not, it kind of shows that we're progressing, which is where I think that's important in terms of setting us for new signings next season. That's in terms of setting the expectations where, okay, if we like next season we go, okay, right, we've made the playoffs 2 times. We know what being in the playoffs is like. Why not try and set our sights a little bit higher? We've got that experience of making the playoffs, and we know it's a crapshoot, and it's not like necessarily about going, we need to be better than the parachute clubs, but just going, the playoffs are the playoffs. That's a way of getting promoted, but there are better ways to achieve promotion. I think it's just that sense of momentum as a football club that we're trying to build. So that's why I think making the top 6 is important. It does feel like we're not quite ready, but I don't think you're ever going to feel like you're ready to make the Premier League. So
no, yeah, you deal with it
this year.
How good would we have to be to compete in the Premier League next year? Like what? Bearing in mind that Burnley have conceded 16 goals, something like that. Does anyone give them a chance?
Yeah, well, it's like Lee's already talking about changing the manager.
Yeah. Gav, what? Same question to you.
It's my romantic view of football. It sounds quite nauseating, but I never expected anything from this football club other than all I love doing is just getting ready and building up to big games of football. And this is the good thing about being in contention. If we can extend that into the playoffs, we can look ahead and yes, we might reflect on a couple of poor performances and we might as well have finished 7th, but we still got to build up, right? We still have to build up to those games. It's still a great football club to be around when there's a big game on the horizon. I think I'm reasonably happy. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Lampard is like the right person. And I think all that we said earlier, he's just steadily finding out I think maybe he got caught up. We all got caught up in that, what was it, 15 games unbeaten or whatever it was. And now the final throes of the season, what we've just seen, you can just kind of sense that he's just understanding really what needs to happen. I'll be really interested to see. I think he's a great manager to have. One of the things you need in that playoff lottery, we saw it with Robbins over Carrick all the time. It was just good managers find a way of getting it done. They approach those 2 games slightly differently as you would do the cut and thrust of the season. But yeah, look, I think it's been I'm happy with this season already because I think we've got the right man in charge who knows what it's going to take to move this club forward for the rest of the season. Yeah, it'd be nice to have. We've got 2 big games left. It'd be nice to have 5 big games to look forward to. That's what we love.
Just going back to previous playoff excursions, probably worth remembering that we were unbelievable in one of them, the semis. So the Notts County away game in League 2 was just about, but even then we had a 20-minute spell in the second half where we looked like we were going to fuck it up. We were sort of acceptable in the away game at Middlesbrough. But actually the first 2 for the both home semi-final legs, we were fucking awful in both of them games. Like actually we've got promoted and got to a final before playing shit in one of the 2 games we had to be quite good in to get there. Like this, once you're there, it is all bets are off, isn't it? Like anything can happen basically. And that's going into the second thing that I was going to say, which I agree with you on. As a dopamine enjoyer, I think it's just the thrill of, now obviously I've got to hope that, Argentinians don't take my tickets, coming over here, taking our tickets, right? But that I want to get in the playoffs because I want to go to Bramall Lane and watch a playoff semi-final. Even if we lose 2-0 and that's us done and toast.
Give me a chance.
You like it. I remember at the Riverside, I don't think it's been called that for a long time, but you'd still. The Cellnet, or whatever the fuck it's called. Like the people that I went with, which is maybe 7 of us, and then what was like 7 adults and 1 child, and the 7 adults were visibly shaking before that game, shitting ourselves. Like, no enjoyment, no just like, this is really important. We could really badly fuck this up. And then when we were walking back to the car, we were both going over the moon. But God, isn't it good to just feel alive sometimes?
It's good to care, isn't it? It's great.
You know, like Middlesbrough did a big thing of fucking pyrotechnics and fireworks before that game. That I was like, all right, this is all right. Like this is a big, this actually is like an empirically big game, isn't it? This is fine. So, but that for me is why I think that this season, I agree with what all three of you have said. 7th, I don't think means that we've had a shit season. 6th or 5th means that you get that experience to go through. And to your point, Dom, which I think is absolutely spot on, what's more fucked up more than anything is you'd expect footballers and people involved in the world of football would compute this stuff better, but I would suggest they probably compute it worse. It's much easier to sell a club as, oh, we were a playoff team last season, than we finished 7th, even though there's meaningfully no difference whatsoever between the two. Speaking of new signings, by the way, and I'm conscious of time here, so might be wrapping up fairly soon. The recruitment department's cup runneth over big time this summer. Have you seen how many Peterborough players are out of contract? Do you remember when? So we've had 3 meaningful transfer strategies over the last few years, which is sign ex-Chelsea players that AD Vivash has still got the number of in his phone. What was the other one? Sell players to Bristol Rovers.
Yeah.
And then
Swansea, raid them.
Yeah. But I do wonder whether the third one that's on the horizon is sign all of Peterborough's out of contract players. Just our
if you've got 30 grand a week.
Yeah. Doug being like, have we got a list? He'd be like, yeah, we've got a list. Yeah. Be like, Harry Cipriano. Who else? Poku.
On the right, yeah.
Have you got anyone not on? Yeah, loads of people. Right. Okay. Well, look, final question, I suppose, for the three of you. Do we make it? Do you back us to finish in the top 6?
I back us? I don't know. I'd back us. Yeah, of course. You got to.
Obviously, you don't know. You're not fucking crystal ball. I'm just saying.
Some people think they do know. That's what I don't get. Gav, you think you know? You bet. You know, don't you? Surely.
Well, as you said that, I was just looking for what the markets are saying.
Yeah.
And you have we still got a top? We still got a top 6 finish market.
I looked about 6 weeks ago, and odds-wise, it was something like 85% likelihood that we would finish in the top 6, and we were in a less secure position than we are now.
2 to 5, we are to finish in the top 6. Bristol City 1 to 10, Middlesbrough 9 to 4, and then 20 to 1 bar those 3. So
feels right.
Yeah, it does.
Feels right. I don't know what price we'd be at home. We'd be, maybe a touch of even money at home to Middlesbrough. Well, no, probably 5. That's being a bit generous, actually. I don't think we'd be odds on to get home against Middlesbrough in the last game if it came to a shootout. But
I think we are. I don't know about you. So I genuinely have, talk about famous last words. I'm not worried about the Middlesbrough game. I think
I'm a little bit worried.
I think they've mind-fucked themselves into this sort of tragedy. Like, do you know what I mean? Like this sort of like romantic failure, like England, where they're where they think that because we've beaten them twice in the last 30 years, that all of a sudden we're their bête noire. We're not.
Yeah.
but I also think there's a touch tragedy about Carrick, who for my money, I think is quite a good manager. But if you talk to Middlesbrough fans, they seem quite sour on him. I know they've spent some money.
I think listen to the way they talk about him any given game. Like we're talking about like people reacting or going too high and too low, but since January, they've gone 1 week, want to sack the guy next week. Okay, it's fine. And that's just been their perpetual. It's just madness.
I do think you've got to be careful what you wish for, haven't you, sometimes?
Definitely. They're the perfect example of it. Like, what are you doing? Like, you had a bad run. And their bad run, by the way, was them going from 4th, middle of January, for 2 weeks later you know, they were 7th or they'd lost a couple of games or something. It's like, it's 2 weeks. It's a bad 2 weeks. Like anything can happen in 2 weeks. It's fine. People forget that all the time.
They didn't have a good start though either, I don't think, did they? But then I also think they were lost to quite a few injured players at the start of the season. But actually, I don't know that. That's what I'm sort of vaguely memorising. All right. It feels like we're done, right?
Yeah. I'm excited again now though. Come on.
Yeah, it is exciting. Do you know what I'll finish with actually, which is really exciting, is for the first time ever. So my 6-year-old come with me to West Brom, and he has got no tangible interest in football whatsoever, but he has asked to come against Middlesbrough.
Yes.
And that's a bit of fun.
Whose ticket are you going to steal to get that then?
He's got a season ticket. I've dragged him to about 6 or 7 games this season, as many as I can get to and sort of get him to. But I need his points. Christ knows. So
sure.
He's got more points than me. I think before this season, I was able to get him a season ticket for, what was it, like 25 quid or something?
25 quid. Yeah. Yeah.
He's got like 6,000 points. He doesn't even live in Argentina. Right. Okay. We're done, aren't we? Thank you, Neil.
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Dom.
Cheers, good to be on.
And thank you for joining us again, Gav.
Thank you, gent.
Gav, plug your things.
Anytime Notebook.
Your better podcasts that you do.
Anytime Notebook. Yeah, that's what it's called. And you search for it and you find it in the usual ways, in much the same way that you would type NII into Spotify to find it.
Yeah. And avoid the other Lamptey podcast that came out at roughly the same time as we did, but then didn't last another 13 years. Okay, well, there we go. Right. Well, yeah, simple as that, really. Bye. Bye.